Early hours of May 2nd, 2025, a covert Ukrainian operation took place off the coast of Novorossiysk, located just 31 miles from the Russian shoreline in the Black Sea. It was a quiet night, the kind that many would think to be unremarkable. But behind the calm surface, something extraordinary was about to unfold. An attack that would shatter expectations and forever change the way military experts view air defense. From 12:01 a.m. to 6:10 a.m. local time, Ukraine executed an unprecedented strike against Russia's advanced military defense systems. What began as an ordinary night in one of the most heavily monitored regions of Russia's maritime defense grid turned into a strategic nightmare for the Russian Black Sea Fleet. This operation wasn't just another assault, it was a game-changer, a bold move that bypassed traditional warfare strategies, exploiting Russia's blind spot in their low-altitude air patrol zones. The area surrounding Novorossiysk has long been considered one of the most secure regions in Russia's defense network. Russian Su-30SM fighter jets routinely patrol at altitudes of 1,600 to 3,300 feet, on constant lookout for low-flying threats including drones and surface vessels. But these jets were not prepared for what was about to hit them. Ukraine, using unmanned surface vessels, USVs, leveraged the low-visibility, calm seas, and moonless skies to launch a series of carefully planned strikes. The stealthy USVs carried heat-seeking missiles including the AIM-9M Sidewinder. Originally designed for fighter jets, but mounted on the USVs to launch at targets from below. This strike wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from the water, under the radar of Russia's low-altitude defense systems. The timing was deliberate. Ukrainian forces knew that Russia had been confident in their defense strategy. Russia had recently enhanced its low-altitude surveillance with Su-30SM fighter patrols, floating radar stations, and early warning platforms. They believed their defense was impenetrable. But the Ukrainian military had found a hole in that armor, one that would prove to be fatal. By 12:01 a.m. on May 2nd, the Ukrainian Mura V-7 USVs quietly left the Nestor estuary, a concealed waterway south of Odessa. These weren't your typical kamikaze drones, they were highly sophisticated mobile strike platforms designed for stealth. Their mission: infiltrate Russia's radar detection zone without alerting the enemy. As the USVs moved deeper into Russian-controlled waters, they operated in near silence. Traveling at 8 to 9 knots, roughly 10 miles per hour, their engines were almost undetectable, quieter than a household fan. The strategy was simple but highly effective. Avoid detection at all costs while getting into position. And that's exactly what they did. The three drones operated in a coordinated triangular formation, spaced 1,000 to 1,200 feet apart. One USV, Unit 3, served as the command and communication hub, equipped with encrypted satellite links and infrared laser communications. This network was nearly invisible to Russia's radar systems, which were trained to detect threats in the sky. While Russia's fighter jets patrolled for airborne threats, they never expected the danger to come from the surface of the sea. Ukraine's drones exploited this blind spot, creeping just below Russia's radar range and preparing to strike. Each of the three USVs carried a heat-seeking AIM-9M Sidewinder missile, modified for low-altitude engagements. These missiles had been retrofitted with sensors to lock onto the thermal signatures of Russian jets operating at low altitudes. This was no ordinary missile strike. The Sidewinder was designed to be launched from high-flying fighter jets, but Ukraine had repurposed it to strike from the ocean, challenging the very notion of air superiority. At 6:03 a.m., Russian naval radar detected two low-speed, low-profile surface contacts moving eastward. Initially, they were flagged as possible USVs, but the radar operator couldn't pinpoint the threat. Only two of the three drones were visible on the radar screen. The third USV, which was the command unit, remained hidden, strategically positioned to stay out of sight. Russia's response was swift. Two Su-30SM fighters scrambled from Krim Air Base, climbing to 4,000 feet before veering southeast to intercept the surface vessels. But as the jets descended into the engagement zone, the drones had already anticipated this move. Unit 1 of the USV formation subtly adjusted its course, leading the Su-30s into a more favorable targeting position. As the fighter jets closed in on the surface vessels, it was already too late for Russia to react. In a matter of seconds, the AIM-9M Sidewinder missile locked onto one of the Su-30's heat signatures. At 6:07:19 a.m., the missile launched from sea level, tracking the jet's afterburner exhaust, which was clearly visible in the infrared spectrum. The missile struck the Su-30 with surgical precision, hitting the left engine nacelle and causing a catastrophic explosion. The jet was immediately sent into a flat spin, and while the co-pilot managed to eject, the pilot perished in the crash. The missile strike marked the first time in history that an air-to-air missile had been launched from a surface drone and successfully shot down a manned fighter jet. The news reverberated across military circles worldwide, signaling a new era in modern warfare. The unthinkable happens: 2 Russian fighters down in under a minute. The impact of the missile strike was just the beginning. As Su-30SM fighter tail number 04 red plummeted into the Black Sea, its wingman, Su-30SM tail number 16 blue, quickly responded, banking left and diving to 3,000 feet. The pilot, knowing full well the threat posed by the surface drones, attempted to outmaneuver the remaining visible USV. But the situation was rapidly deteriorating. The Russian pilot, accustomed to responding to threats from the sky, was unprepared for the attack from below. The Ukrainian drones, still maintaining their stealthy position, knew exactly how to exploit Russia's defensive assumptions. Unit 2, the second USV in the formation, accelerated to 29 miles per hour, closing the distance on the Su-30. Within seconds, the drone's infrared targeting system locked onto the Su-30's mid-fuselage heat signature. The heat generated by the jet's fuel tank and electronic systems was clearly visible to the missile's seeker, which was designed to target heat signatures with pinpoint accuracy. At 6:07:48 a.m., the second AIM-9M Sidewinder launched, its trajectory precisely calculated to intercept the Su-30's turn. The missile struck the jet's right wing near the external ordnance pylon, triggering a massive explosion that tore through the aircraft's structure. The impact of the missile caused catastrophic damage, severing fuel lines and producing an overpressure strong enough to shear through the aircraft's wing. The Su-30 immediately lost lift on one side and spiraled into a rapid nose-down dive. The co-pilot and pilot were unable to eject in time, and both perished as the aircraft crashed into the sea, leaving behind only debris and a fireball that lit up the Black Sea. In less than 45 seconds, 2 Russian Su-30SM fighters had been taken out, marking an unprecedented tactical blow to the Russian Air Force. This wasn't just the loss of 2 aircraft, it was the collapse of Russia's perceived dominance in the skies over the Black Sea. As the wreckage of the 2 fighter jets sank beneath the waves, the Ukrainian USVs continued their mission, executing their final protocol. Each drone transmitted confirmation imagery, precise coordinates, and system data back to the Ukrainian command center in Odessa. The drones then activated their self-destruct sequences, erasing all data and leaving no trace for Russia to recover. The loss of 2 Su-30 in such a short time was not just a defeat on the battlefield, it was a psychological blow to Russian military command. The attack had been executed flawlessly, and Russia's layered air defense system, built around fighter patrols, had been rendered obsolete in a matter of minutes. The incident forced a re-evaluation of Russian air defense capabilities and exposed the vulnerability of their low-altitude radar coverage. Russia's response, a shift in tactics and defensive overhaul. Within hours of confirming the loss of 2 Su-30, Moscow's military command was in a state of panic. The magnitude of the attack sent shockwaves through Russia's Black Sea command. Russia's once dominant air superiority in the region had been shattered, not by stealth aircraft, advanced missiles, or enemy jets, but by small, unassuming surface drones. An emergency directive was issued by the Russian military, and all Su-30 patrol flights in the western Black Sea were suspended for 2 weeks. This wasn't a tactical withdrawal, it was a direct result of the psychological impact the attack had on Russia's military leadership. The Su-30s, once the pride of Russia's Black Sea fleet, had been rendered ineffective against the new threat from below. The loss of these 2 advanced fighter jets was not just an operational setback, it was a fundamental shift in how Russia viewed threats in the Black Sea. The suspension of Su-30 patrols marked the beginning of a larger defensive overhaul. Russian naval engineers were swiftly dispatched to install new defensive measures around critical maritime approaches, especially around Novorossiysk Bay. Floating barriers, steel mesh nets, and sonar detection grids were added to improve early detection of surface-level threats. For the first time since the conflict began, Russia had to acknowledge the possibility of precision-guided missile strikes coming from the surface of the water rather than the skies above. Additionally, Russia had to rethink its flight patterns. Low-altitude fighter patrols, once considered standard procedure, were now banned. Manned fighter missions were pushed back to inland sectors, away from the vulnerable coastal zones. Surveillance duties shifted to medium-altitude UAVs and long-range radar stations, putting even more strain on Russia's already stretched defense systems. This defensive restructuring was Russia's immediate response to a threat they never saw coming. Their reliance on traditional air defense systems focused on intercepting airborne threats had blinded them to the emerging challenge posed by sea-based drones. The devastating loss of 2 Su-30s forced Russian commanders to confront a brutal truth. Their defense strategy was fundamentally flawed. Ukraine's masterstroke, a revolution in modern warfare. The operation on May 2, 2025 went down in history not only because of its success, but because of the revolutionary shift it brought to modern warfare tactics. Ukraine had broken the mold, challenging air superiority in a way that was completely unforeseen. By launching a missile strike from the ocean's surface, they had not only destroyed 2 of Russia's most advanced fighter jets, but had also reshaped the future of air defense and warfare as a whole. The AIM-9M Sidewinder missiles, which had been repurposed for this strike, demonstrated how existing technology could be redefined for new combat environments. The surface drones used by Ukraine were designed to avoid detection, infiltrate enemy territory, and launch precision strikes from an angle that had never been considered before. This was asymmetrical warfare at its finest, using innovation, stealth, and tactical brilliance to exploit a massive vulnerability in the enemy's defense system. Ukraine's success wasn't just about destroying 2 fighter jets. It was about showing the world that air superiority doesn't have to come from the sky. By attacking from below the radar horizon, Ukraine had exposed a blind spot in Russia's defense system that could have far-reaching implications for future conflicts. This operation proved that victory doesn't always require owning the skies. Sometimes it's about exploiting the weaknesses that exist below. For Russia, the aftermath of this operation was sobering. They were forced to admit that their layered defense systems, once thought to be impenetrable, had been vulnerable all along. And as the Black Sea's skies grew more uncertain, Russia's air superiority was called into question, with no clear answer as to how they would adapt to this new form of warfare. Ukraine's operation wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a strategic masterpiece that redefined modern warfare. It demonstrated the power of innovation and the importance of exploiting the unexpected. The world had just witnessed a new paradigm in military tactics, one that blurred the lines between air and sea defense and left Russia grappling with a threat they couldn't even comprehend. The aftermath, redefining warfare and global implications. The destruction of Russia's 2 Su-30SM fighters in such a short amount of time was a watershed moment in military history. It wasn't just about losing 2 jets, it was about the emergence of a new warfare doctrine, one that fundamentally changed how air superiority is understood. Ukraine's operation proved that military dominance no longer relies solely on control of the skies. The attack from below the radar line was a clear demonstration that the battlefield of the future isn't just limited to land, sea, or air. It's a blend of all 3, with new vulnerabilities emerging in the most unexpected places. Russia's immediate response, including the suspension of Su-30 patrols and the drastic restructuring of flight patterns, highlighted just how vulnerable they had become. Their reliance on high-altitude surveillance, a strategy they had trusted for years, had been shattered in one fell swoop. No longer could they view unmanned surface vessels, USVs, as mere psychological warfare tools. They had proven to be deadly, precise, and effective in combat. For Ukraine, the success was both a strategic and psychological victory. By using inexpensive, innovative technology to take down sophisticated Russian jets, Ukraine showcased the power of asymmetrical warfare. This wasn't about matching Russia's power blow for blow, it was about exploiting their blind spots and flipping the script on conventional military thinking. For just under $300,000, Ukraine had successfully neutralized over $100 million worth of Russian air power. Internationally, this attack sent a message to other military powers around the world. Traditional air defense systems are no longer invincible. The idea that air superiority must be maintained from above the clouds had been thoroughly challenged. Ukraine's operation proved that the future of warfare may involve a combination of surface, air, and even underwater capabilities to neutralize threats in new and unexpected ways. In the coming months, global military analysts will likely revisit their own defense strategies, particularly those focused on low-altitude surveillance. This could lead to a paradigm shift in military doctrine, with nations looking for ways to counteract the growing threat of drone warfare from unexpected angles. As for Russia, the loss of two of their most advanced fighter jets marked a critical turning point. The psychological impact of this attack cannot be overstated. For years, Russia had relied on its air superiority as a cornerstone of its military dominance in the region. Now that belief had been shattered by an enemy that used stealth, innovation, and asymmetry to achieve what was once thought impossible.